The rain hadn't stopped since sunrise. It fell in sheets over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, drumming against the coffin lid as it was lowered into the earth. Jake Morrison stood at the edge of the grave, shoulders stiff beneath his soaked black coat. The faces around him blurred, friends, ranch hands, neighbors, all offering condolences he barely heard. His father's passing had come too soon. A heart attack, sudden and cruel, the kind that takes without warning. The man had built this ranch from the dirt up, shaping every fence post and cattle line by hand. Now he lay beneath the same soil he once plowed. Jake tipped his hat lower to shield his face from the rain. Though he knew it wasn't the weather making his vision blur, beside him his daughter Emma stood silent, a 20-year-old with her mother's sharp eyes and his father's unbreakable will. She didn't cry. Neither of them did. The Morrisons weren't the type to weep. They endured. When the final prayer ended, Jake turned toward the horizon. Beyond the graveyard, the land stretched for miles, his land, his father's legacy. He promised himself then and there, nothing would ever take this ranch from their name. The drive back was quiet. The windshield wipers beat like a ticking clock. The storm clouds twisted above the valley, heavy and restless. As Jake turned down the long dirt road leading home, something caught his eye, a flash of color against the gray. He slowed the truck, a sign, bright red and impossible, for auction, Willow Creek HOA. He slammed the brakes, the truck skidding slightly in the mud. Emma leaned forward, her voice breaking the silence. "Dad, that's our property line." Jake climbed out, boots sinking into wet soil. The sign's metal post had been driven deep into his yard, right next to the old oak his father planted decades ago. The letters were bold, confident and wrong in every way. He ripped the sign from the ground. Rainwater streamed down his face, but it wasn't cold anymore. It was fire. No one from the HOA had ever had authority here. The ranch was older than the subdivision that crawled up years later. His father made sure the paperwork was clear. Yet here it was, a claim of ownership by people who had no right to it. Jake turned to Emma, his voice low and steady. "They think because I've been gone for a week they can take what's ours." Emma's eyes hardened. Then they're about to learn what happens when they pick the wrong fight. Lightning cracked in the distance, splitting the dark horizon. Jake looked back toward the ranch house, his father's windows still glowing faintly through the rain. "This land," he said under his breath, "is Morrison land. And no one, not the HOA, not Karen Whitfield, not anyone, is taking it." The storm rolled on, fierce and unrelenting. And so did Jake. By morning the storm had passed, but the ground was still heavy with mud and trouble. Jake Morrison woke to the rumble of engines outside. He stepped onto the porch, mug of black coffee steaming in his hand. 2 white trucks sat near the fence line, men in orange vests unloading metal stakes and laminated sheets. He didn't recognize them, and that alone was enough to make his pulse tighten. Jake set down his coffee and walked across the yard, boots crunching over the damp gravel. "You boys mind telling me what the hell you're doing on my property?" One of the men, a young guy with a clipboard and too much confidence, didn't even look up. "Installing notice signage, HOA orders. Property scheduled for auction next week." Jake froze. "Excuse me?" The man finally glanced at him, clearly impatient. "All documentation's been filed. You'll need to contact the HOA president if you've got complaints." Jake's jaw tensed. "And who's that?" Before the man could answer, a sleek black SUV rolled up the dirt road. The door opened and Karen Whitfield stepped out, heels clicking, sunglasses gleaming, umbrella snapping open with mechanical precision. Jake knew her by reputation alone. Karen was the kind of woman who treated rules as stepping stones, sharp poised and poisonous beneath the smile. "Mr. Morrison," she called, her tone dripping with authority. "Good morning. I understand this is an unpleasant surprise, but the Willow Creek HOA has procedures for absentee properties. Your land has been unoccupied for more than 60 days. Jake folded his arms. "My father died last week. That's why it's been quiet." Karen blinked, unaffected. "My condolences. But legally the property fell under review after his passing. Unmaintained, unpaid fees, zoning oversight. These things happen. You're welcome to reclaim it, of course, by attending the auction." Emma appeared in the doorway, phone already recording. "You can't auction what you don't own." Karen's smile faltered. Oh dear. I see you've inherited your father's temperament. Jake stepped forward, closing the distance until the edge of Karen's umbrella almost brushed his chest. You've got 30 seconds to take those signs off my land before I do it myself. Karen raised a brow. Touch those workers and you'll be facing a lawsuit before sunset. Jake grinned, but it wasn't friendly. You ever been thrown off a ranch before, ma'am? It's a quick lesson in gravity. A flicker of unease crossed her eyes. The workers hesitated. One quietly started removing the signposts. Karen regained her composure fast. You're making a mistake, Mr. Morrison. The HOA governs this area now. We're simply modernizing what your father neglected. He leaned closer. My father didn't neglect anything. You're trespassing. Karen's tone turned cold. Then prove it. Jake pointed toward the truck. I will. And when I do, I'll make sure this entire town sees exactly what kind of fraud you're running here. Karen's lips curved in that same professional smile, too polished to be sincere. We'll see about that. She turned, heel slicing through the mud as she returned to her SUV. Before climbing in, she looked back over her shoulder. You've got until Friday, Mr. Morrison. After that, it's not your land anymore. The engine roared to life, spraying dirt as the SUV sped off down the road. Jake stood there for a long time, rain still dripping from the gutters, his jaw clenched tight. Emma walked up beside him. She's bluffing, Emma said quietly. He shook his head. No, she's scheming. And we're going to find out how deep this goes. He turned toward the house, fire in his eyes. Get your laptop, Em. If Karen Whitfield wants a war, she's got one. The kitchen table was a battlefield. Maps, deeds, old letters, and Emma's laptop were spread out like tactical plans for a war neither of them wanted, but both refused to lose. Emma typed furiously, the glow of the screen reflecting off her determined eyes. Dad, look at this in the HOA bylaws. They only have jurisdiction over the residential developments north of County Line Road. Our ranch is 5 miles south of that. Jake leaned over her shoulder. Then how the hell are they claiming authority here? She scrolled further. Because of a proposed expansion, one that was denied by the county board last year. But someone updated the HOA website showing it as approved. Jake frowned. That's falsifying public records. Exactly, Emma said. Already downloading PDFs. And look at this. Their so-called auction notice was filed under a zoning code that doesn't even apply to ranch properties. It's for commercial foreclosures. Jake exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. So they're bluffing with fake paperwork, Emma nodded. Which means they don't have legal standing. None. If we can prove that in front of the county clerk, they'll have to withdraw everything. Jake smiled faintly. The first genuine smile since the funeral. You're your grandfather's girl, you know that? She grinned back. Someone has to keep the Morrison name sharp. By afternoon, they were driving toward the county courthouse in town. The road was long, flanked by amber fields still damp from the storm. The courthouse loomed ahead, old stone, tall windows, and an American flag snapping in the wind. Inside, they met Linda Avery, the county clerk, a woman in her 60s with sharp glasses and a sharper memory. Jake placed the HOA notice on her desk. Can you tell me if this permit's real? Linda adjusted her glasses, scanning the papers. Her brow furrowed. These codes aren't ours. This signature, it's not any of my staff. Emma leaned in. Someone forged county authorization. Linda nodded slowly. Seems so. And the last legitimate zoning expansion request from Willow Creek HOA was denied. They'd need to reapply and receive a 30-day advance permit to auction any land, which they didn't. Jake's hands tightened into fists. So this whole auction's illegal. Linda stamped the papers with an official seal. Invalid under county law. If they proceed, it's fraud. You've got the law on your side, Mr. Morrison. Emma took a picture of the stamp with her phone. That's all we needed. As they walked out into the bright sunlight, Jake looked up at the courthouse flag flapping above them. For the first time in days, the sky felt open again. Emma smiled. So what now? Jake's expression hardened. Now we make it official. We'll file the injunction and stop the auction before Friday. She nodded. And if Karen tries to push back? He looked toward the distant hills. Then we show her what happens when the law meets Morrison Steel. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jake stood on the porch with a cup of coffee in one hand and the county-sealed documents in the other. The ranch was quiet. Too quiet. Somewhere out in the dark, a coyote howled. He didn't know it yet, but Karen Whitfield wasn't done. She'd just been backed into a corner, and people like her didn't back down quietly. Jake took a slow sip, eyes narrowing. "Come at me, Karen," he whispered. "Let's see what you've really got." The wind swept through the valley, carrying the sound of distant thunder. The real storm was only beginning. Friday morning dawned with a strange calm, the kind that comes before a gunfight. Fog rolled across the valley, shrouding the Morrison ranch in silver haze. Jake was already awake, pacing the porch with a copy of the injunction folded neatly in his hand. At exactly 9 o'clock, a convoy of SUVs appeared on the dirt road. Black vehicles, tinted windows, and the HOA's familiar crest printed on magnetic door signs. They rolled in like an invading army. Emma watched from the kitchen window. "They're early," Jake nodded. "Good. I hate keeping vultures waiting." He walked out to meet them, boots crunching in the gravel. The first SUV door opened, and out stepped Karen Whitfield, dressed in a beige suit that screamed authority and arrogance. 2 private security guards flanked her, each with earpieces and folded arms. "Mr. Morrison," she began smoothly, "I see you've been busy, but unfortunately your paperwork came too late. The auction proceeds as scheduled." Jake held up the stamped document. "This says otherwise. Straight from the county clerk." Karen didn't even glance at it. "We'll see what the courts say about its validity. Until then, you are trespassing on a property under HOA control." That word, trespassing, hit him like a spark to dry brush. "This land's been Morrison land for 3 generations, Jake said, voice low and steady. "You've got no claim here, and you damn well know it." The security guards took a step forward. Emma came outside, camera recording again. "You might want to smile," she said coolly. "This footage is already backing up to the cloud." Karen's eyes flashed. "You think intimidation works on me, little girl?" Jake stepped between them. "No, but the law might." He handed one of the guards the injunction. "Read it. You're enforcing an illegal order. That makes you part of a criminal conspiracy." The guard hesitated. The other looked uncertain. "Ma'am," he muttered to Karen, "if this document's legit," Karen snapped, "it's not. Keep going." Jake turned, gesturing to the small group of neighbors gathering at the edge of the property. Word had spread. Dozens of locals had come to watch the auction, drawn by gossip and outrage. Jake raised his voice. "You all know my father, Daniel Morrison. He built this ranch with his bare hands, paid his taxes, helped build your fences, fixed your roads. Now this woman thinks she can sell it off like it's scrap metal." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Karen hissed, "You're obstructing a lawful event." Jake smirked. "Funny. The county clerk said the same about your paperwork." He waved his hand toward Emma, who stepped forward and held up her phone. "Here's the official statement from the clerk's office, denying your permits, voiding your claim. Would you like to read it aloud, Mrs. Whitfield?" Karen's face went pale. The crowd's murmurs turned to angry voices. A man shouted, "You lied to us, Karen." Another added, "You said this was approved." Karen tried to speak, but the noise drowned her out. Jake stood tall, the fog swirling around him like a curtain lifting on justice. "This isn't about one ranch," he said. "This is about every homeowner you've bullied, every family you've overcharged, every threat you've made under that fake HOA badge." "It ends today." The guard stepped back. One muttered, "We're out." They turned and left, leaving Karen standing alone. Jake's voice dropped to a whisper meant just for her. "You came here thinking this was your show, but you forgot one thing. This land fights back." Karen's hands trembled as she clutched her clipboard. "You think you've won, Jake? You have no idea who you're dealing with." He smiled coldly. "Oh, I think I do. And I think you'll be explaining it all to the sheriff." As if on cue, a patrol car rolled up the road, lights flashing. Sheriff Davis stepped out, hat low, expression unreadable. "Got a report of an unauthorized auction," he said evenly. "Karen Whitfield, I'm going to need to see your permits." Jake crossed his arms, satisfied. "Told you." Karen tried to argue, but the sheriff raised a hand. "Save it. You'll have plenty of time at the station." The crowd applauded as she was led to the car, muttering under her breath. Emma turned off the camera. "That was incredible." Jake exhaled slowly. "No, that was necessary." He looked around the ranch, the fog beginning to lift, sunlight spilling over the fields like forgiveness. "But it's not over yet. She's too connected to go down this easy." Emma nodded. "Then what now?" Jake glanced at the retreating patrol car. Now we prepare for whatever she throws next. He looked back at his land, his father's land, and finally allowed himself to breathe. The reckoning had begun. But the war wasn't over. A week later, the morning sun rose over Willow Creek like a warning flare. The official HOA auction had been canceled by court order, but that didn't stop Karen Whitfield from trying one last time to salvage her empire. The whispers started early. A private auction, held at the town's abandoned fairgrounds. No county officials, no permits, just bidders, brokers, and cash under the table. Jake found out through a neighbor who overheard the plans at the cafe. He didn't even hesitate. "She's not walking away with this," he said, grabbing his keys. Emma followed, camera in hand. "Dad, are you sure about this?" Jake glanced at her. "If we don't end it today, she'll keep coming. For us and for everyone else." The fairgrounds were eerily silent when they arrived. Rows of folding chairs faced a small stage where Karen stood behind a podium, papers stacked neatly beside her. Around 24 men and women in suits waited, murmuring quietly. Karen spotted Jake the moment he stepped into the open. Her face tightened, but she forced a brittle smile. "Mr. Morrison, how bold of you to join us." Jake didn't reply. He walked straight toward her, the crunch of gravel echoing through the empty field. Emma followed close, her camera recording everything. Karen lifted her microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, as I was saying, the Willow Creek HOA hereby initiates the auction for Lot 47. Jake's voice boomed across the space. "This land isn't yours to sell." The crowd turned. Cameras clicked. The tension thickened. Karen's mask cracked for just a moment. "Security!" she barked, but no one moved. The guards from last week had refused to work for her again. Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. "You see this?" he said, waving it high. "Certified legal evidence, fraudulent documentation, forged county permits, and misuse of homeowners' funds. All signed by you, Mrs. Whitfield." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Karen tried to regain control. "Those claims are unverified." Emma stepped up, projecting her voice. "Not anymore. The county prosecutor received copies this morning, and by now every homeowner in Willow Creek has the same documents. You can't hide what you did." Karen's voice rose, desperate now. "This is slander." Jake's tone was calm and almost gentle. "No, this is justice." He opened the folder and let the papers fall, fluttering through the air like broken wings. Each sheet bore the county seal, each one proof of her lies. Karen lunged forward, grabbing at them, her composure collapsing. "You think this changes anything?" she hissed. "People like me don't lose, Jake." He looked her dead in the eye. "Then maybe it's time you learned how." Behind him, the sound of sirens filled the air, county sheriffs arriving in force. They'd been waiting for his signal. Karen froze, realizing the trap had closed. The officers stepped out, their badges gleaming. One approached her. "Karen Whitfield, you're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and unlawful property seizure." Her mouth fell open, disbelief twisting into fury.
"You can't do this!"
"I built this community." The sheriff's voice was steady. "No, ma'am. You exploited it." As they led her away, cameras flashed. The bidders dispersed, whispering among themselves. The fairgrounds emptied until only Jake and Emma remained. Emma lowered her camera, her hands trembling. "It's really over." Jake nodded slowly, staring at the sun climbing over the horizon. "Yeah, for now." They walked back to the truck in silence, the gravel crunching underfoot. But as they reached the gate, Emma looked back one last time. "What happens next, Dad?" He smiled faintly. "We rebuild. Not just the ranch and the trust this town lost." She nodded. "And Karen?" Jake looked toward the distant police cars, their lights fading into the morning. "She'll answer for what she did. The law will take care of her now." They drove home as the sun broke fully over the valley, bathing the fields in gold. For the first time in weeks, the ranch didn't feel like a battleground. It felt alive again. When they reached the porch, Jake paused and looked out over the land. "Your grandpa would have liked this ending," he said quietly. Emma smiled. "He would have liked the fight even more." Jake chuckled. "Yeah, I guess that's where you get it." She leaned against him, and together they watched the light stretch across the pastures, reclaiming everything Karen tried to steal. For the first time in a long time, peace wasn't just possible. It was earned.